Hello, I'm Stephen A. King with Hot Topics. Today I'm here with trial attorney J. Christopher Smith. Welcome back to the show, Christopher.
My pleasure to be here, Stephen.
Thanks for being here. The trial in the death of Trayvon Martin got underway with opening statements today, 16 months after the shooting stirred protests, anger, and debate. Using George Zimmerman's own words, the prosecution opened their case against him by portraying Mr. Zimmerman as a gun-toting vigilante who profiled Trayvon as someone that was up to no good. Now, Christopher, what was the prosecution's theory in doing this?
Well, I think the prosecution was trying to establish that George Zimmerman had already made his own conclusions about who Trayvon Martin was in that very moment while he was still seated inside of his vehicle. And he was the one who basically profiled Trayvon Martin, thought he was an individual who was up to no good, and even said something like, these fucking guys, up to no good. And so right there, the prosecution is establishing, or trying to establish, that Zimmerman is the person who is the aggressor in this situation.
Now, they're looking into Zimmerman's state of mind before he even got out the car to approach Trayvon?
Absolutely. They want to focus on the fact that Zimmerman had made up his mind about who Trayvon Martin was beforehand. And in that way, they want to make the argument that he's not going to be able to now come up here and say, oh, this was self-defense, when he's the guy who instigated everything.
So as an initiator of an attack, that may deprive Zimmerman from using the self-defense grounds as you understand it.
As I understand it, absolutely. If he's the one who you can't just go out on the street and start an altercation and then say, okay, now I'm going to shoot you, and then say, hey, it's self-defense. Mm-hmm. Self-defense is to be used when, you're being attacked and you feel that your life is being placed in jeopardy. And then under the Florida law, you have a right to stand your ground and protect yourself.
Now, in contrast to this, Christopher, the defense said Zimmerman was a citizen looking out for his neighborhood when he was attacked by Trayvon. Now, what evidence does the defense have in their favor?
Well, I think it's clear that George Zimmerman is a person who cared about the community in which he lived. He was the captain of, the Homeowners Association, the Neighborhood Watch, where he was out there looking out for himself and looking out for his neighbors because crime was on the rise in his community. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to make sure that they kept their eyes out there. And he thought that Trayvon Martin, because he was an individual who he had not seen before in the community, could be someone who was, participating in this criminal conduct.
Now, I know from the opening statements, we know what the prosecution's theory is and we know what the defense theory is. And it looks like the defense has had an opportunity to advance their case today through Rachel Jontel. Now, what, if anything, was significant about Ms. Jontel's testimony in light of the two opening statements and the way that this case has been fashioned for trial?
Well, with respect to Jontel's testimony, the prosecution tried to paint Trayvon Martin as this middle America kid who didn't have any issues and minding his own business. And the defense is trying to say that, wait a minute, this kid was the aggressor. This kid has some issues. And so through her testimony, you hear her say things like, when she was on the phone with Trayvon Martin, she said that Trayvon was saying, oh, something like this cracker is following me, then says, oh, this nigga, referring to Zimmerman, is still behind me. And I think that's an indication that, Trayvon Martin is not necessarily this middle America kid, not this kid necessarily who has a halo over his head. And it furthers the defense's position that possibly Trayvon Martin was the aggressor in this situation.
So no one knows at this point how this thing actually got started. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I think that's what the issue is. The prosecution is saying Zimmerman's the aggressor. The defense is saying, no, it's Trayvon Martin. He was the aggressor. And so those facts will unfold throughout the course of this trial, and that's going to be an issue in which the jury is going to have to deal with.
Right. That's a very interesting insight, Christopher. And it seems that as a legal professional with trial work, you think that that's important as well. Who's the aggressor and how it relates to whether or not someone who is the initial aggressor can thereby claim self-defense and utilize the stand your ground defense. And that's great. Great legal minds think alike. We'll have to see what happens on this case. Stay tuned right here on Hot Topics, and we'll keep you updated.